Buckle up. Witness number 9 in the people of the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump was unlike any moment of this trial we've seen so far, unlike any witness in this trial we have seen so far. And this is a trial that has already seen its fair share of twists and turns and drama. But on the stand today, Hope Hicks, the consummate silent Trump insider who was by Donald Trump's side for years, from before he descended down the escalators at Trump Tower and announced his first run for the White House all the way through his final days after the January 6th insurrection. As the Washington Post put it today, she witnessed every Trump scandal. Today, a visibly nervous and distraught Hope Hicks, who began to cry as cross-examination began. Before that, though, she pulled the curtain back on Donald Trump's innermost circle. Hope Hicks described the meltdown inside Trump world over the release of the Access Hollywood tape. She was the first person in the campaign to know about it when she got an email from David Fahrenthold. He was then with the Washington Post. He's now at the New York Times. David Fahrenthold was seeking comment from her. Hicks sent the email to other staffers on the campaign, including Kellyanne Conway and Steve Bannon, and she wrote this: flagging. 1, need to hear the tape to be sure. 2, deny, deny, deny. Hope Hicks said, quote, there was consensus among us all that the tape was damaging and that this was going to be a crisis. So what was Trump's first reaction? Well, that it was not something he would say. But later, Trump said that it was, quote, not anything to be so upset over. And he said it was, quote, pretty standard stuff for two guys. Nonetheless, Hope Hicks recalled the intense reaction, enough to completely overwhelm press coverage of a Category 4 hurricane bearing down on the United States. The Trump campaign battered by criticism from within the highest ranks of the Republican Party. And then in the coming few weeks, campaign had to contend with allegations of more inappropriate behavior on Trump's part from various women. And that Trump was indeed concerned about how all these stories would impact his standing with female voters. Now, when it comes to the two women at the heart of the criminal case, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, Hope Hicks said that she first heard of Karen McDougal on November 4th, 2016. That's 4 days before Election Day, when she received an email from a Wall Street Journal reporter, also now at the New York Times. She had heard of Stormy Daniels a year before, as NBC News reports, when, quote, guys on a plane were telling a story about Stormy Daniels attending a celebrity golf tournament with a participant who played with Donald Trump. Hicks said the Trump campaign hoped that the story would simply blow over. And then prosecutors began to ask Hope Hicks about her time serving in the Trump White House. Hope Hicks said that Donald Trump told her that Michael Cohen had paid Stormy Daniels out of the goodness of his own heart. Trump said that, actually, to protect Donald Trump from false allegations. Hope Hicks told prosecutors that Trump's story was inconsistent with the Michael Cohen she'd come to know. Quote, he is a kind of person who seeks credit, Hope testified to. An insider's insider, bringing the highest levels of Trump world to light today in Donald Trump's first criminal trial. It's where we start with some of our most favorite reporters and friends just back from the courthouse, both Christy Greenberg, she's an MSNBC legal analyst and a former criminal division deputy chief at the Southern District of New York. And Sue Craig has joined us as well from court. She's, of course, New York Times investigative reporter and an MSNBC contributor. Lucky for us, a regular at this table at this hour. Plus, Democratic strategist and director of the public policy program at Hunter College, Basil Smikle, joins us for the hour. My friend and colleague, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard, is outside the courthouse for us in Lower Manhattan. Vaughn, I am going to start with you and just the Hope Hicks of it all. We were looking, we know that she was in the room where it happened, when it happened, all the time as it was happening. And she was, exactly as you described, professional, courteous, managed to keep herself held in high regard, regardless of the sort of gutter that Trump dragged the country into. This was too much for her at a point today. Talk about your reaction to watching this testimony.
Emotional, teared up in literally within the first minute of her cross-examination from Donald Trump's attorney. the court had to take a pause as she was given an opportunity to regroup, collect herself there. And then upon walking out, our team described her looking just solemn on her way out of the courthouse, understanding that this was an emotionally difficult day. What she described upon walking into the courthouse this morning was a relationship that began with the Trump family back in 2014. This is a decade-long relationship. Now, one we should note that she testified has been cold since 2022, or at least cold to the extent that she hasn't talked to her former boss since the middle of 2022, after the tapes of her testifying to the January 6th committee came out, in which she described on January 6th, warning Donald Trump that his legacy was on the line because of the attack that day. And so for Hope Hicks to come in here, though, and publicly testify just short distance from Donald Trump, somebody who gave her not only a terrific job at a major corporation, but then ultimately led her to become the campaign press secretary for the presidential campaign that would go on to win the presidency, and then give her a job as comms director inside of the White House, all by the age of 30 years old. In no small part did Donald Trump have an impact on her life. And what you heard today to describe was what the prosecution knew from her, what she had previously told congressional investigators about her experiences in 2015 and 2016. But then she did provide some insight there, particularly when it turned into 2018. Initially, after the Wall Street Journal reported about the Stormy Daniels $130,000 payment from Michael Cohen, in which she says that Donald Trump explained to her that, boy, Michael Cohen, such a charitable act on his part to do that for me there. And you could see here, almost by testifying to this, providing an insight into, one may be able to imply its skepticism, but then others, to a certain degree, for somebody, as she described herself, to be so in the know about the campaign and the Trump organization, clearly there was a lot that she, from her own testimony, did not know, that she was not privy to, that Donald Trump and Michael Cohen kept away from her, and so much of this bearing out for the public through this criminal trial that she was asked to take the stand and be a part of today.
You two were both in the room where it happened. Tell me about it.
It was a remarkable moment, and let's go right to 2018, and the Wall Street Journal has got a story where they've got more details on the Stormy Daniels payment. They had mentioned it in the 2016 story with Karen McDougal, but they are surfacing a lot more information about it. And as a result of that, Michael Cohen issues a statement to the New York Times. He's doing a story on it, saying, he's just disavowing, he's saying that he did it on his own. He made this payment on his own. And then he goes to tell Hope Hicks about this. And Hope Hicks is pretty skeptical because it doesn't sound like the Michael Cohen that she knows. He's not a very charitable person, and she's very skeptical about it. And then the next day, we don't know where it is, but she has a conversation with Donald Trump about it. And this is the moment that was just sort of, the whole courtroom was like, wow, because she's talking to Donald Trump, and it was relaying the conversation that she had with Michael Cohen. And Donald Trump says, well, better to be dealing with it now. It would have been bad if it had come out during the election. And the courtroom was just quiet. And then the government ends their questioning of her, and the cross starts. Donald Trump's lawyers get up and they ask a pretty basic question of her. They said, just tell us what month you started, what year you started working at the Trump Organization. And then suddenly, I thought she just lost her voice because I thought she was reaching for water, and she just started crying. She had the tissues came out, and the judge said, we'll take a break. It was just unbelievable. I think we can kind of put together what happened. I don't think it was the government's question about when she started working at the Trump Organization that triggered it. I think
Trump's lawyers asked that.
Right? When Trump's lawyers asked that, I don't think it was that. I think it was just the overwhelming sort of, it felt like a confession that she had come forward and said this. That's the heart of their case.
That by 18, he says, yeah, I paid for it, but thank God it didn't come out.
Thank God it didn't come out and influence the election. And it was just this moment. And then she was kept tearing up as the cross-examination of her continued. It was just such an emotional moment today.
Yeah, and what I would say is you cannot overstate just how significant this testimony was, because there is no document. There is no other corroborating witness. It's just Hope Hicks and Donald Trump having this conversation. She didn't have to share it. And she clearly didn't want to share it. That was obvious. And yet she went up there and she told the truth. And she said, yeah, this clearly mattered to him. It was about the campaign. As you said, that is the whole ballgame here. And it's interesting because leading up to this, she was being very careful with her answers. There were a lot of, I do not recall. She was asked about a conversation she had with Michael Cohen. I don't remember. She's refreshed a few times with other grand jury testimony. Oh, well, sitting here, I don't remember it today, but back then, yes, I suppose. She's being very, very careful. And I'm thinking, oh, is she playing games here? What are we doing? And then it leads up to this. And this was like the mic drop moment that the prosecution ended with. And then she really says, yes, he understood this mattered. This was about the campaign. And she didn't have to do it, and she did. And it, I think, is so damaging to his case. You can attack David Pecker as being a sleazeball from the National Enquirer. You can attack Keith Davidson for having all these sleazy clients. Right. Like, there was nothing to attack here. She was just a young woman who got onto his campaign just 4 years out of college and clearly looked up to him and cared about him. She had many moments in her testimony where she was saying really wonderful things about him, right? And then this.
He's so good at multitasking. He's so good at message. He's so good. I mean, that's how it started.
Right, and you really felt her affinity for him. And I have to say, she was a little bit nervous when she first started her testimony, but then I thought really did a good job. She was even. I thought the jury, very personable. But then as we're leading up to this moment where she starts to cry and makes this, I felt like it was a confession, she became very anxious on the stand, as if she knew what she was going to say. We're never going to know. But you could feel something building as she got to this moment.